In this video, I'm going to be sitting down with Amy and talking all about her journey and Walmart suspensions. Amy has been selling online for over 15 years and she sells on Amazon, eBay, and Walmart, and she's absolutely crushing it on Walmart. Recently, she got hit with a suspension over compliance errors, and in this podcast, she's going to go over everything that she did in order to overcome it and how you can prevent being suspended on Walmart as well. Hey everyone, today we're joined by Amy, aka Ecom Chick, and we're going to be talking about her ecom journey, and she's been in the space for a long time. So there's going to be a lot of knowledge dropped, a lot of wisdom. So Amy, why don't you go ahead and just tell us how you got started and how your journey began in e-commerce?
So just kind of like anybody, I think I grew up flipping stuff. My earliest memories, my parents had an antique store. So I grew up going to flea markets and yard sales, and they would give me $1 to kind of push me off as the side, like, here's $1, kid, go do something with it. So I quickly learned that I could buy something at a yard sale and flip it at the flea market for money. So by the time I was in high school, I was working arts and crafts festival and selling in the antique store. Fast forward to, I started selling on eBay in the late 90s. I had worked for Walt Disney World in Orlando for 5 years, so I had a ton of Disney stuff, and I was broke out of college, first time house, all that kind of stuff, so I needed extra money, so I started selling on eBay. Kind of put that aside, but when I had my daughter, I was working for Home Depot corporate, and we were literally putting her in daycare at 6:30 in the morning, and I was picking her up at 6:30 at night. So I had zero time with my daughter. So I left corporate life and started selling on Amazon, and just like everybody else, it was booked, even used puzzles. So this was 13 years ago, and Frozen, anything Frozen I could sell. So I started retail arbitrage with Frozen. The Star Wars movies were coming out, so I started flipping lightsabers, and it just snowballed from there. And it got to be where it took over my house. So it was a big leap. It was really the scariest thing I think I've ever done in my business, was getting my warehouse. And I tell people it's not for everybody, but sometimes if you take those giant leaps, it does propel you. And once I got the warehouse, I was able to bring on employees full time, and we just continued to grow. The first year I hit 1 million in Amazon was 2017. So I started in 2012. So it took me 5 years to hit 1 million. But my daughter then was in kindergarten. So I was actually working full time in the business. We hit 1 million and just continued to kill it on Amazon all the way through 2020. I guess I found out the other day I technically started on Walmart in 2018, but I didn't do anything with my Walmart account till 2021 Q4. And then 2022 is when we really started ramping up Walmart. But it's really funny. Amy nowadays looks back at me and I'm like, I had Walmart in 2018 and I did nothing because COVID hit and everything, and I did nothing with the Walmart account. But today you still find me still selling on eBay. So I've been on eBay for more than 20 years. Amazon, like I said, I'm in my 13th year on Amazon, and I really consider 2.5, 3 years on Walmart, just because that's when I really ramped up the focus.
I think it's fair to say that you're a veteran in the space, but as someone who's been selling online for a long time, you mentioned 3 platforms. Are you currently pivoting more towards one? I know you said that earlier before the podcast, you're ramping up eBay, but is there one that you are solely focusing on? Like, this is my main focus. Right now, I have a VA solely dedicated to Amazon and Walmart because I had one switching between the two, and I myself was switching between the two, but I found that I was just having diminishing results. So how do you kind of like break that down selling on 3 platforms?
So we have people dedicated. So really my job has become, I source the product, but I have someone dedicated for eBay, someone dedicated for Amazon, and somebody dedicated for Walmart. So my husband had got laid off from AT&T after years. He was an engineer at AT&T and they were outsourcing his job and laid him off. So we brought him into the business. I joke, I onboarded him a couple years ago, and I told him, I'm like, here's Walmart. I really didn't have the mental space for it. I was so strong in Amazon. I'm like, go see what you can do with Walmart. And I kind of like, go sit in that office over there and go play around with Walmart. And we quickly ramped it up. So actually this year, Walmart is our main focus. It started about mid last year. It was 50-50 last year, but this year, Walmart is by far my biggest platform. eBay is actually second. I've got to where I can easily do $10,000 to $15,000 a month on eBay, and the margins are by far the best on eBay. So if you're doing $15,000 on eBay, I'm netting $7,000 off of that, $8,000. So I can't do that on any other platform, straight net. So, and Amazon has fallen to 3rd place. You would have told me that even 18 months ago, I would have laughed that I was going to be focusing almost all of our energies on Walmart, but we just like it. We're doing well. It's easy right now, even with my road bumps, but I still like it. But yeah, the Walmart is our main focus, but we do still sell on Amazon, and I'm learning with everybody to navigate. I just pivot. I just keep pivoting with Amazon.
So selling on those three platforms and having the breakdown between the Walmart, Amazon, and eBay, do you source specifically for one marketplace? Or I know you said that you're practically in charge of sourcing and also your business model. Before the podcast, we were talking about wholesale and you also mentioned retail arbitrage. Are you primarily sticking with one business model or are you sourcing differently for different marketplaces?
Well, we do source different. Amazon, we were almost completely wholesale for Amazon. We're big in grocery and health and beauty. And we did start moving those SKUs over to Walmart. Walmart is still really easy to do retail arbitrage. So, when you're out there in the stores, it's hard to not grab that ROI on clearance and the hot buys, Easter candy, and things that are going fast. So Walmart is definitely a blend. Walmart is probably about 60% wholesale, but we have that OA and RA aspect to Walmart that we're not walking away from right now. I have somebody new coming into the business. She likes doing RA. So I'm learning to guide her into that process to where I'm like, here you go. Here's our guidelines of and now there's tools out there to help me with rank that I didn't have before, no sales history. So now, as the tools are improving for Walmart, you're able to have an RA buyer, where in the past it's been a little bit difficult. We had to rely on Amazon ranking, and that doesn't always quite work for Walmart. But Amazon I'm still doing mainly wholesale. I do seasonal flips on Amazon, but Amazon's probably 97% wholesale. And then Walmart, like I said, it's about 50 to 60% wholesale with a really strong dose of RA in there.
And then for the eBay side, is it just products that don't sell on the other marketplaces? Because I know a lot of people who sell on Amazon or Walmart, they get products they have to liquidate, and where do you sell them? I think Facebook Marketplace, eBay, these are all in the equation. But I think you specifically, I see on your Instagram stories and stuff, you specifically source for eBay, which is not something that you kind of see in our little bubble. There's the thrifting and the Rally Root side and all of those guys who are eBay, I call them eBay heads, but like, are you specifically sourcing for there, or is it just product that you're moving on other marketplaces?
No, we do. We buy pallets. So there are pallet liquidation stores across the country, pallet liquidation auctions. So we do go to auction and we have some suppliers, and it is for eBay only. I make it very clear in my Instagram stories or wherever you follow me, but I do a lot of stuff over there. I'll traditionally go to yard sales and thrift stores, but I can't get the volume to get to $15,000 a month in sales. So we buy pallets and we break them down, pull out what we can sell individually. And we'll sell a little bit of everything, because sometimes it's a CVS pallet, sometimes it's a QVC return pallet with shoes or clothes, or a Nordstrom pallet. So we do buy pallets. One of my guys, Dusty, loves to go through that type of stuff. He'll dig through a pallet, put on the gloves, and pull out the good, pull out the bad. And then we have an easy way. We dump it back into a pallet auction, the things that we can't move on eBay, because there's a lot of flea market buyers that will buy the pallets of stuff that's good for $1 to $5. It just doesn't make sense on eBay. So I tell people, if you do pallets for eBay, have a way to dump the bad stuff. But also, I do dump my returns from Walmart and Amazon. They do go on eBay. I have a virtual assistant that is dedicated to eBay. So all we do is do the photography. We upload it to a Google Drive. The VA, while I sleep at night, does all of my listings. I wake up to 50 to 100 listings a day. We sell anywhere. We're already at like 30 listings midday today sold. So we do I do a fast turn. No matter what platform, I'm that fast nickel person. I don't like to hold on. I know my inventory turn on Walmart and Amazon. I don't hold on to stuff. I don't pay for long-term storage fees. And I do the same thing on eBay. It takes up warehouse space. So it's got to go. So we like to move it fast and take that fast nickel.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't condone any drop shipping or two-step drop shipping on Walmart unless it's from a wholesale supplier. But I have a wholesale supplier that the product just sells so quickly that I just received it today, and I already have like 100 orders that I need to fulfill, and I just keep getting shipments because the supplier doesn't store it. So I'm literally like getting it in and sending it out the same day. But like that turnover is not, it's hard to manage, and there's got to be like an equal middle where you're just like holding. I think under a 30-day turnaround is pretty good.
It is. So I start really worrying at 90 days. So I look at 30, 60, 90, and then at 6 months, you're gone. Like 6 months, I'm liquidating you to my buy costs or looking at, because it's expensive on Walmart to have the things returned back to you. So it's almost worth liquidating at just at bare minimum or a slight loss. You got to look at that return fee. It's a little bit different from Amazon where they'll even send it back to you in a pallet if they, I've gotten a whole pallet back from Amazon before. But it shocks me, the people in the space that don't know about inventory turn and don't realize that at a year, Walmart is charging you a gold.
$750.
It is so expensive at 365 days.
Yep.
And there's people that have no idea with inventory age. And I'm like, you got to get rid of that stuff,
Absolutely.
You're paying a lot for it. And it's hard to see it on Walmart. Well, it's not hard. It's harder to see it on Walmart than it is Amazon.
Yeah, I think Amazon, for all the stuff that people complain about, they make it pretty easy where you can just like see the drop down of your inventory age. So kudos to them. That is something like I remember I had to download that file and I was like, I had something that was 5 months and I'm just like, I just liquidated it. So there's a lot to cover. I think just, to set a little bit of a pacing for the viewers, teams and operations, Walmart, the suspension, of course, and just where your business and where you think things are headed. Because you run a massive operation and this podcast could easily be like 5 hours long.
I know people are still getting suspended right now for a comp error. And it's stupid. And then they think they're going to come right back up and you don't. It's like, I appreciate that they've added in the email that it takes like 48 hours to fully come up. The bigger your catalog, it's going to take days to fully come back. And then you lose pro seller status. And it's just the mess. They need to fix that part of it when you don't do anything wrong.
So what was like the catalyst for that suspension? Was it just one product? Because I have compliance error issues in my catalog.
Product. I never sent it in, never sold it. It was an air filter, but it was antimicrobial. That word, and I did not realize on the box till I got suspended. And then I'm looking at this box and I'm like, are you kidding? I'm like going at it on all eye. And I finally see on the box antimicrobial properties. And there's so many antimicrobial properties out there. I mean, there can be a cell phone cover that's antimicrobial. There's notebooks during back to school lunch boxes for little kids. Often the handles have some antimicrobial protection. So when we think antimicrobial, we think Lysol, and that's an easy thing, but there's so many other products. And that word is such a taboo word and people don't realize that. And you can sell it seller fulfilled. I could have sold 1 million of those air filters. Seller fulfilled, never had any issue. But when you send it to a warehouse or you convert it to WFS and it's an antimicrobial product, they can suspend you for it. And it's a comp error. So you need to, and here's the thing, it's hard to get that comp error. It took 2 weeks and 4 cases to get that error out of my account because I kept working it daily. They kept closing cases and I'm like, you suspended me for this. I never sold it. I never sent it in. So, I'm like, it's not even a fun thing I got suspended for. There's other people that sell liquidation or sell, straight counterfeit goods that we know are bad actors that have accounts. But then I'm like, seriously, I added an item to see if I could sell it. And you suspend me for it.
I think Drop Air and all those guys have the secret. Don't sell microbial and you can do what you want.
It's a big word. So I tell people, I'm like, you got to watch those comp errors. Or what is the product,
Right. Yeah, I had a similar, thankfully I didn't get suspended. But once you posted your story, I went and I looked. So I actually had these bug traps. They were like these fly traps that I got from clearance on Walmart. I only got 2 of them and I submitted them and I converted them to WFS maybe 3 weeks before you got suspended. And I saw the compliance error. And then I looked at my emails and they had sent me like 4 or 5 emails about this product. I never responded. So thankfully I was able to act in time. But between the time when you listed it and all the emails, did they urge you to go ahead or did they notify you or tell you that this was a product that would get you suspended?
For that one, no. So we had entered it into our catalog in November. And so in the height of Q4, a comp error showed up. So I sent it to the VA and I'm like, one of her weekly tasks is anything that's a comp error she tries to clear. Because as you know, about 50% of them you can get cleared. Sometimes it is a mistake. There's a word that triggers it. The person goes in and looks at it and it's cool, you can sell this. That one came back and didn't clear. But it's Q4, the height of Q4. It was right before Thanksgiving. Never did anything. We went back, we searched emails, and then it was in February when they suspended me for it. It was about 60 days later. So I checked spam, I checked everything. So they see, like you said, they give you a time to get it out of your catalog. But in the past, Walmart hasn't cared about anything. So if you've been selling on Walmart for a while, we'd gotten really lazy. We didn't clean up catalogs. You can't really delete. We didn't necessarily retire things. I found a way to game the system system to keep my price competitive score up on old SKUs. So I had 6,000 SKUs in my catalog. 6,000. I didn't really care. They didn't go after IP claims. Come February, I have a very, just like Amazon, my catalog, I address every error immediately, get it out. I keep a very clean catalog. If I don't intend to replenish, I'm retiring the SKU or deleting it. So there's things we do that we used to not worry about has been added to a daily or a weekly task for the VA or myself to come behind and make sure that it's taken care of.
And for, let's say, the other errors, so you have mentioned the compliance, there's also the biz error, there's a couple of the other ones. Are you as kind of like go-getting with any of the other errors, or are you as, forgot the word, but are you as proactive with other errors?
With the IP, because I have seen somebody that got suspended for an IP complaint, and it was an old item, but a new company had bought the product. So the new company really wanted to protect that product, so they were going after people. So I do know somebody suspended for IP. I know somebody that was suspended for a comp error. The product was not antimicrobial, but it was suspected to be, and they got suspended. So you really just, I think IP and comp errors, stay on top of those. The biz errors, that's usually a product that they can't sell because of a business relationship, or they're decided as a business not to carry that product in their warehouses. I do say clean up all errors now. I sound like Seller Basics or one of the other services. Like, I can hear joy in my head going, keep a clean catalog. So that's what I'm telling everybody. Like, just if you're not going to replenish it, delete it, retire it. You can only delete merchant fulfilled. You have to retire. If you're an older account like me, check your archived items. Back in the day, we couldn't do anything but archive a SKU. So if you're an old enough account, you could have some things hidden in the archive. But if anything ever pops in trust and safety, you really need to address that. The way you can look at it these days, there's a submenu under your catalog, unpublished. If you have anything that trust and safety is looking at, it will show up. If you don't see a trust and safety area, there's nothing right now that is a huge concern. Just follow your errors and get them out of your catalog. But if something is there, you need to address it today. Open cases, show with your activity feed that you're trying to retire the item, you're trying to delete it. If it's an IP, respond to the emails. Don't ignore them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, your case as well as other cases and people that I've seen, I think it's kind of like the Wild West is always said about Walmart, but even more so with the restrictions and just like what is allowed versus not, what will get you banned, what will get you terminated, suspended. And I've seen this case, I've seen the Inform Act, so people will fill it out, it'll be perfect, and then it'll still say needs review, and Walmart will take like 2 months. And people have gotten suspended from that as well. There was one person who they didn't get any warning, and then they got an email saying they were selling like 15 trademark brands, and they got suspended or terminated even. So I think Walmart, a big thing that they need to do is the dashboard where you mentioned the trust and safety is a nice step, but having more insight on like exactly which errors constitute suspensions, exactly how long. So you mentioned the 48 hours being added. I think like even then it was a little unclear because you also got suspended, and then it took, let's say, once you were reinstated, it still took like 7 days or even longer for you to go ahead and have all of your items published.
Oh, it was a nightmare. You can't do anything. Walmart is very different than Amazon. So Amazon gives you like a 3-day heads up in a lot of cases, except Section 3 to work on an error. You just get an email. I got an email that morning at 11:46. My sales stopped. You can't do anything with your account. You can't even look at help, which to me is insane that Walmart restricts you from looking at the seller guides and reading on the seller guides, because you're supposed to write a plan of action. And in fact, you can't even submit a plan of action until it has been exactly 7 days. So we had to go back in the next Monday about noon, because we got suspended about 11:46 a.m. We went in at noon, submitted the plan of action. It was immediately approved. And after the plan of action is approved, then your SKUs come up one at a time, and it takes every 2 to 3 minutes. I had 6,000 SKUs in my catalog. So you can do the math on how long it took. It was also the worst week of the world. It was the week when we were getting validation errors. So any health and beauty or food, which again, I told you, I'm a health and beauty and a food person. I do a lot of grocery, a lot of health and beauty. So all of those were airing out. So we couldn't bulk upload and force them to go through. So it got down to where there were over 2,000 SKUs that the VA and myself had to manually push through. So we would both work on it for 2 or 3 hours, and then we would walk away for sanity, and then she would tag in. And so it took us a good 3 days to get the bulk up, and then we just started mass deleting SKUs that we did not intend to replenish. That we could bulk do. And 2 days before, I remember I got like 3 orders one day. And then on Thursday, I had a $297 day. You would have thought that was like having like a $5,000 day for me. So we turned back on Monday. It was Thursday, I sold $300. The other things they don't tell you, so it comes back up very slowly, one SKU at a time. The other thing they don't tell you is you lose your pro seller badge. So I'd always had pro seller. I've lost it. It's 90 days before you can get it again. So you start back all the way over. So even though all my metrics are there for pro seller, nope, have to start back over for that. Your money, you go about 3 weeks. And if Walmart's your only platform, that's going to be tough. I mean, I have 2 other platforms I can pivot to quickly and ramp up. So for Walmart, I missed a pay period during the suspension. So it's 2 weeks before you get another pay period. So I went 23 days without a payout because the early payouts stopped. Now they have started back because I hit the order threshold again for early payouts and the amount sold. I hit that rather quickly. So early payouts start back up pretty quick for you. But a lot of people don't realize that if cash flow is an issue for your business, if you're suspended, it's going to be about 3 weeks before you start getting money coming back in. A lot of people are tough cash flow. It can always be a challenge in our business, but I always try to tell people, be prepared for that. Have some expenses saved up, have another platform you can ramp up. eBay, you can get money quick, 48 hours in eBay. So have a backup plan, for Walmart for money.
Yeah, that's golden advice. Do you have any inventory in WFS as well that was aging there, or just like you were getting charged the storage fees?
You do, and they also won't work shipments for you till you're back up. No, so I had 2,000 units that were sitting there. So I had just sent in just over 2,000 units on Friday when I got suspended on Monday.
Grocery?
Just grocery, beauty was everything. But yeah, a lot of it for Easter. For grocery, I was beginning to ramp up for Easter. It was February, so I was ramping up for Easter sales. And so you have 2,000 units that just came. So we stopped shipments that week. I'm like, nope, we're not sending any shipments. So then you have the delay of that because they won't receive it. Then the shipment sat there. I actually had to open up a case and have them say, hey, look, the shipment's been there 10 days. Can you work it? And they're like, oh, okay. Because I guess when you're suspended, they're put into a different area of the warehouse. And then I had to go in and open that case to say, work those 2,000 units. So I tell people, that's why when one of my friends got suspended, I immediately reached out to him and I'm like, it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks. I know they say 7 days, but to get fully up and going with shipments being checked in, money being paid out. So it's a tough suspension. And I've never been suspended on a platform, 13 years. I can knock on wood with Amazon, nothing with eBay. So it was a new experience for me.
It can also just be like, what's happening, right? Especially during Easter. I had my seller fulfilled suspension during Q4 of last year. And right in November, I was looking at the graph recently and I was about to hit about 200,000 sales and then just flat lines. And then like December, thankfully I was able to get it back up within a week. But during Q4, it's just like you buy all this inventory, you're ready to get it out. And then like, what do? You're just left holding the bag. So it can definitely restrict a lot. It definitely makes you worry. Thankfully, like you said, I think also a lot of other sellers need to start just having back channels that they can go ahead and liquidate to. It could be as simple as like Facebook Marketplace. It could be something like Letgo, but just having that other channel that you can go ahead and distribute either bad inventory, liquidations, stuff that you can't sell, gated stuff. Absolutely. So I know the friend that you're probably mentioning is Cody.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's someone else, another podcast that I want to do. But I remember I saw you in the chat where he was just like asking all of his questions and like, you were responding one by one, just like, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. So you were definitely like the first person I know to go through this. But it is, like you said earlier in the podcast, that is going around, right? And just to kind of close out this segment, actionable steps for listeners. So, what would you recommend that they do? Would you recommend that they go through everything and reply to the compliance errors? Or should they go ahead and just delete them straight away?
What I would recommend is there are a lot of the products you can sell with a comp error. So you open a case and when that case comes through, if the case doesn't come back in a positive way, if they tell you that you're not allowed to sell it at this time, you need to work on getting that removed from your catalog, that product. What you'll want to do is attempt to, if you've converted it to WFS, which is probably why you have the comp error, you're going to want to try to retire it. You want to keep that activity feed. Make a note of it. We throw it on an Excel spreadsheet with the item SKU and the item name. And if it does not retire in 24 to 48 hours, open up a case, refer back to that activity feed and say, I've attempted to retire this product. It's got a comp error and it needs to be removed from my catalog. And then just stay on top of that and make sure that comp error is removed, because they're telling you, you can't sell this. We don't want you to ever send it to the warehouse. That's easy thing. You'll stay smooth selling with Walmart if you follow that. For IP, respond back in some form or fashion. Respond back that you're not going to sell it in the future and removing the item from your catalog, or respond back with receipts, but address what they want. I noticed one email asked for pictures of the product. Do respond to the IP, and then look at your catalog in general. If you're not going to restock that item, go ahead and retire it, because if you retire it, but you later to find more or want to sell it, that's a super easy fix. You just edit the SKU, give it a new end date, and it's live again. So it's super easy to keep it retired or to delete them and keep that clean catalog, and just address emails and you're going to do fine. The tricky thing is, until Walmart gives us a way to see if we can sell the item without adding it to our catalog, we're going to have to just go in and be a little bit more mindful than we have in the past, because all of a sudden Walmart's decided they're going to take it more serious, and we need to take it more serious. I wish we had something like Amazon where it pops up and it immediately says restricted and we just keep it moving. But unfortunately, we don't get that with Walmart. So we have to follow up ourselves.
So you actually just gave me an idea for like a software to look for antimicrobial or somewhere of those keywords, as well as to check the history and maybe put a notification or just like a warning, no WFS sellers found in the past 30, 60, whatever days, maybe ever. And this way, that's something that I started to do now whenever I'm doing retail arbitrage or just like a product I don't know. So I found a product recently, it was a pool cleaner, and I look at it, no WFS sellers. I look to see on the different softwares, there's a lot, whatever retail arbitrage scanner you're using, no history really of WFS sellers. And then I look in and I see that there's something about bleach mentioned inside of the description, and I've had past experience, you can't WFS those. So I didn't try it. I just bought the ever amount I can get, and then I just fulfilled them self-fulfilled, which is fine, right? If you're doing that, it's not worth taking that chance, because if you buy, let's say 100, if you get a wholesale order for 1,000, you convert it to WFS, you can't sell it. So it's better to just go ahead, look at and see if you can, sell it first. Before you even buy it, if you really are only doing WFS, maybe convert it to WFS, but just also take into account that it is a gamble, and that if it's restricted, there is no way to then unconvert it from WFS to be able to sell that product.
It is, because that's the easiest way. I showed on Instagram one day, if there are no WFS sellers and it is a bug spray, it is an insecticide, a fungicide, antimicrobial, because you can find a filter for a humidifier like me that it's fine to WFS. Vacuum cleaner filters, fine, but there's going to be certain vacuum cleaner filters that have that added chemical to kill bacteria in the air, and that you should see no WFS sellers, and you should know, hey, the money has to be there for me to sell or fulfill this. I'm not going to be able to do it WFS. So it's that extra step we have to take. But like I said, the software, it amazes me how fast software is catching up for us. When I started on Amazon, there was nothing, and now we have just so many choices to make great decisions. But I applaud the community for getting us there, because now you can look at having a buyer for RA. You can look at having a third-party software tell you this is probably going to be restricted for WFS, so you can make that buying decision. Can I merchant fulfill this and make money?
That's a great transition. So bringing up buyers, teams, operations, one thing that you talked about was 2018. You wish you had started selling on Walmart then. I started in 2019, so you beat me by a year. But the one thing I remember is that it was a completely different platform. Number one, the back end was horrible. creating listings was terrible. Retiring, if people saw how it is then compared to now, you would just be like screaming how amazing it is. It was just terrible back then. Not only that, the platform was dominated by drop shippers. I don't know exactly what percentage, but like 75% of the people on my listings were drop shippers and just like competing. Like Drop Air, me and him are old friends. We go way back. So right, just seeing that transition from them. Also WFS, there was only Deliver, which was also a nightmare. That was a whole another chapter in the Walmart saga. So I think getting on 2021, 2022 was like the perfect time.
But I remember the first time I ever did a Walmart listing, it took me like an hour. I wanted to hit my head against the wall. I would come out of my office and I would tell my husband, "This is not even viable. This is not a viable platform." I'm like, "No, I can't do this." And back then people have no idea what it was like, and you couldn't delete, you couldn't retire. The only way you could make anything go away was just to archive it. You couldn't buy shipping through Walmart. It was a night and day. And it's like it keeps getting better. And now we actually, like you said, have software so you can have a team. And I remember I have processes now. People complain about cases. Back in the day, it was a little bit harder to even track cases, open up. Now we have the little AI assistant where you can answer questions. Like you said, it's still tough to find things on Walmart, but at least it's getting better and it's helping. But I'm like you, back in the day, that's why I walked away from it for a long time, because bravo for you for sticking with it back in those really early days.
I would say I stuck with it. I was foolish, and I remember I looked at one month and I was like, I had 15,000 in sales, and then I look at my returns and I see like lost after delivery, lost after delivery, lost in transit, lost in transit, and I sell chandeliers and like high ticket furniture, and like it was just like $500 out of my pocket, no way to rebuttal it. That's when I started doing signature confirmation. So even also just like you mentioned, the AI assistant, having the marketplace learn section is also just something that didn't exist. You had to dig through and find it. Someone asked me like a question and I sent them the article and they're like, how do you find that? I'm just like, you have to dig through. It was hosted by Salesforce on a separate website. You had to go through a whole section. So just kudos to them for like, they are making changes. They're listening to the community. That's why I'm also really bullish on Walmart. I think it's going to be a good platform. Not to say that you can't sell anywhere else, but I just think in terms of like growth, I think Walmart offers a lot of opportunity for sellers.
It does. And, I have to say, so I've been to a lot of Amazon conferences through the year hosted by Amazon, Amazon Boost, and the one that was even before Amazon Boost. First of all, you have to pay for those. And they just threw some information and it was still that coldness of Amazon that you get towards sellers. The networking was on point between us sellers, but Amazon didn't really care to interact with us. And then last year I went to the Seller Summit in San Francisco, and Walmart was so nice to us. And the fact that you can sit face to face with a support rep and work things out as you did at Prosper a couple of weeks ago, that's game changing, to be able to get yourself to a convention, to a conference, to an event, and be able to talk face to face with a Walmart person to talk about your issues and to be treated nice and open, and that they want to make changes, they want to make it better. And a lot of people don't believe that, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I think Walmart wants to be the best online platform for everybody. But I'm like you, I believe that more and more that it could be Walmart and eBay could be ending platforms, because everything's getting gated on Amazon. So I think the consumer is going to turn more and more to eBay for the beauty that we can't sell on Walmart and Amazon, because they're going to look for a discount. And I think people are going to be surprised that eBay in a couple of years will be still hanging in there going, hey, we're still here. Don't
Perfect
you like
opportunity for a separate marketplace if anyone is listening and
I know.
wants to build like a Mercari or a Poshmark for beauty.
Because Target, bless their heart, I still can't go in on Target because it's a process. It's all seller fulfilled like Walmart back in the day. You give them a group of SKUs and say, here's my catalog. And they might come back and say, well, we'll take these 5 items. And so it's a very different process. So I haven't checked out Best Buy yet, but who knows where we'll be. And even in 18 months from now, it's crazy how it's changing.
It really is. I think like in 2020, if you had told people to sell on Walmart, sell on eBay, people who are Amazon were just diehard Amazon. They wouldn't even look at another marketplace. So just seeing the shift in that space has been eye-opening, as well as just like you have to have a backup plan. Nothing will ever stay the same. Who knows? Walmart may be something that is not as viable in the future. Maybe eBay, maybe it's Amazon again. Like, right, you just want to keep your options open. And our goal is not to sell on a specific platform. Our goal is just to be able to sell product at the end of the day. And however we do that, I have people who they tell me they do 50K a month in local meetups and Facebook Marketplace and all these other stuff. And I'm like, That's awesome for you. I can't wait in a parking lot with my car, like just holding product. But everyone there's a million ways to go ahead and to sell these items.
One of the big things, though, that I always tell people is you've got to find a community, because with Walmart, more than anybody, you need help. Because you made a comment earlier that I was one of the first people that got suspended. I wasn't. But I was one of the first people that said, hey, I'm going to put this out on social media. I got suspended. And if you hear from my story, if I can help one person delete something and not get suspended, I'm happy, because it takes a community. So people would DM me, well, I got suspended for late shipping and I got suspended for this. And there's such a stigma to that in e-commerce, that you're a failure. Sometimes you're not. We don't know what can trigger this. But if we build a community and we help each other and we really try to go out and we put the information out, hey, this is what happened to me and this is what my product was, then maybe it helps you make a good decision buying, or it helps somebody delete a comp error. So no matter what platform, I think as Amazon sellers, we tend to hold all of our information so tight to the vest, and we've got to put it out there because things are changing so quickly, and with gating and errors and growth and things, I think we're stronger as a community, and we can still hold our suppliers secret. We don't have to tell people where we're getting, what distributor we're using, or what stores we source at, but just general information. We're stronger as a community helping each other. And there's a Discord or a Facebook group or just a mastermind group. You can find even just one other person to help you get through it, and your life will be better as an e-commerce seller.
Yeah, absolutely. So, ending off on that note, where can people find you? How can people connect with you? What communities can I join to interact with you?
Right now, you can find me probably the most active on Instagram under e-commerce chick. I used to be FBA chick, but it just didn't fit anymore. I'm there. I'm in a couple different Discords. I'm in the Sellers Network. That's probably my favorite Discord. That one is a paid Discord, but it hits all sellers: Walmart, Amazon, eBay. They talk about health and fitness. So that's kind of a generalized Discord. I'm in the Thompsons Discord that's free. I'm in Brian's Discord. So I'm in a couple other Discords that you can go. I go to a lot of meetup. I don't do any paid coaching. Noah will tell you, just reach out to me, send me a DM. If I can help you, I will, or point you in the right direction of a group or a Discord that might. I am a moderator in the Walmart Sellers Network. That is a totally free Facebook group. We're over 1,500 sellers. So Sarah, Arbitrage Avenue, started the group, and there's a couple of us that help her moderate in that group. That's a great group for Walmart. I'm in Cody's education group, and that's paid, but that's like super cheap, and that's a lot of information, a lot of calls in that one. So I'm around, but you can find me daily on Instagram.
Yeah, so underneath I will link her Instagram, as well as I'll link Sarah's group. And then if you have a link for like affiliate link or something for the Side Hustle Network, I can also post that. Definitely recommend connecting with Amy. Like I said, she's a wealth of knowledge. She doesn't only sell on Walmart, she also sells on eBay and Amazon. And whenever she is facing an issue or just has general knowledge, she's always sharing about it. I forgot who it is, but there's also someone on Sarah's team she also lives in Jersey, same as me. I think you and her post the most just low-key posts that are just like super informational. But just like I told that to her, and she's like, I don't post anything valuable. And I'm just like, post more, post more. I think you and her need to post.
Yeah, Maria. But
yeah.
And we're one of those people. I sit with like 4,000 followers. So it's, I'm not like the most known person on Instagram, but I tend to post it a little bit on Twitter. But I just put the information out there. If it helps people, it helps them at the end of the day. That's why I don't charge for coaching, because I think we can all succeed if we work together. And that's my hope for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think together we can build kind of like a union. I don't know if that's the right word, but just to make Walmart a little bit better. Strength in numbers and all of that, especially like I think a little overshadowed right now by the sellers in China who are getting crazy deals on like shipping and freight and all these tools, and they're able to leverage the system. So as American sellers and just sellers in general, I think we need to kind of voice and band together. So yeah, I thank you very much for coming onto the podcast and answering all these questions. If anyone, like I said, wants to reach out to Amy, you can always go ahead and check the description and the show notes underneath. And thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been fun. And I hope to see you guys. I'm going to San Diego for the Walmart Seller Summit. That's the next thing on the calendar. So if you're there, there's always a meetup I'll be at.
Perfect. So we hope to see everyone there. Take care.
Thanks.